Hello, and I welcome you all to our Certified DevOps Engineer Live Free Training Program. This is our roadmap, and according to it, we have very successfully completed day 1 to day 5, and we are learning day 6 containerization. And today is our focus on Dockerfile. Let's see the agenda. As you know, this is the overall agenda for our day 6, and in part 1, we have covered the Explorer section and we have gone through with all these topics. And also in part 1 in navigator section we have also learned all these topics, and in part 2 and 3 that was dedicated on building our custom Docker images, so where we have learned. And at this moment I must believe we have very solid understanding about the Docker, and now it's time to take our game to the next level. And today we are going to start with captain section. Okay, and in this we will learn all the advanced concept regarding the containerization. So we will start with understanding the Docker file, its a syntax, the workflow of the Docker file, Docker image, and the container. Then we will go ahead and see the hands-on section, and in hands-on section we will learn all very important the instruction for the Docker files, and around 30 demos we will see on this part. Of course, this is also a part of hands-on. We will also learn the container registries, and we will go more deeper into after that in creating multi-stage build. So we will see that in more detail, and we will wrap up the session with the project. And in that project, whatever we have learned so far, we will enforce our all the understanding how you can actually use the instruction of the Docker file when you are actually working on a project. That's the overall agenda. So let's first start with our first topic, the Docker file. All right, so let's start with the Docker file. So let's understand this. So before we go ahead and talk about Docker files, so quickly recap the layers in Docker image once again. So we saw when we talk about Docker images, so Docker images are a collection of layers, right? So in this case, we have essential file system layer 1 and minimal or packages layer 2, and dependencies is as a for dependencies we have layer 3, right? So it's very simple. But what when we have application code? So this is, let's consider this structure is for Ubuntu Docker image, which has only 3 layers, just as an example, right? So when we have, so we have application code, right? So what we can do, we can add application code over here, and that will form another layer and call it let's say layer number 4. And once we have application, then we at the end we want to start a service in order to access our app outside of the container, right? So that's how it forms. The total number of layers are 5 now. So who decides this layer, how many layers should be there, right? For that we need a way to define, build those layers. So that's where Dockerfile comes in. So it's like a blueprint that tells Docker how to create each layer step by step. Okay, so let's see step by step means what. Let's say for essential file system, this from specifies the base image, okay, as a starting point for the build. Okay, it's the very first instruction in most of the Docker files. So whatever or whenever you write a very, or of course very first or any Docker file, this would be the very first instruction, right? So I could also say Dockerfile is a collection of instruction, right? So usually what happen in from, so when you use in Dockerfile from, so you define the operating system, which operating system or which image you want to create your image, right? So from basically specifies the base image. So in case if you are using Ubuntu, you could write from Ubuntu says the tag, or if you simply we already talk about this, when we don't specify any tag, it automatically consider as a set. So in case of Ubuntu, you define from, right? If your base image or you're creating your image out of or best of the Alpine, you say from Alpine, from OpenJDK, and so on and so forth. So that's where the from is one of the instruction which you write in. Okay, and we need here the file system. So this file layer 1 essential file system. So whatever file system you required, you define from. Okay, of course that will also comes as a minimal package and dependencies as well, but yeah, just for understanding, the first instruction is from, and which specifies your best image of the image you are going to create. Next, come to the run. So run is a command. Okay, it executes actually this run instruction when you write in your Docker file, right? So first is a from, second is a run. So run executes any command in a new layer on top of the current image. Okay, we will see this in action when this image, I mean how what and how this image is we will visualize this when we switch back to our terminal and we create using the Docker file. So just for understanding, any command you want to execute in the Docker container, right, or current image, you use the run command. Okay, so you could see run is used to execute any of the commands. So for example, if you want to execute run apt-get update, so you can use this. If you want to install some packages, you can use run apt install. If you want to check Java version, you can run. If you want to execute maven related or any command, right, so you use run. Very simple, right? So that's how the run is for. Then next we have add, but let's first see another one, okay, and which is copy, and then we will switch back to the add again. So copy is very simple. Copy files or directory, okay, from the host build context into the continuous file system. So it means wherever your Docker file is, okay, and you are in some of the directory, so you want to copy some of the file from your laptop or your local system into the container file system, right? You just use the copy. So in case you want to copy everything, dot, we know this, we discussed this in our Linux part 1. If you want to copy file 1, for example, in the current directory, you could use this. You could see copy F1, or inside the app, you could also use the copy instruction to just copy your files from your local system to the container file system. Okay, that's how we use the copy command. Next, the add instruction. So I could say add is similar to copy, but can also handle remote files via URLs and automatically compress the archives. So add also perform the same, or you could also do the same thing with the add, but when you have, or even you have to download some of the files from some of the remote URL, you could use add command like this, right? Or if you have tar file you want to extract, you could use this one. Then, or simply if you want to copy a file from local system to here, you could use like this. Okay, so this is the way you could use the add command, which is really powerful and provides more functionality in order to create, not the create, to copy. So I would say it's an advanced copy command, right? Next we have CMD. So CMD is the instruction which specifies in, so as I said here, start the service, right? So similarly, CMD, we want to start a service, we can use by the CMD. So this is one of the command like this, and you use. So if you want to start a J shell, right, in case of Ubuntu, if you want to run, this is the cmd bin bash, right, cmd bin sh, cmd catalina.sh.run in case of Tomcat server. So this is the cmd instruction, so default command, right? Or I would say what you want your container to be performed. Or so its simple concept is, if you are creating like Tomcat image for Tomcat, your own server customized image, so at the end, like we already saw this, we have to run some of the service, not some of the service, the service you want to be run. So container is meant for, right? So that's how we define in CMD instruction. like this. And you could also say, okay, run is also perform the same. So for example, let's say I want to start a service, systemctl start tomcat 10, right? So that you can also perform with the run, but there is a difference in between run and cmd, right? We will see this in later in action. So these are not only, but these are the one you frequently gonna use, or you need to know as get when you are starting with the writing the Docker files. We will see more, and we have so many demos waiting for us ahead. So let's see those as well. But before that, so these are the instructions. Remember, from is mandatory. Rest all the instructions are optional. Whenever you're writing a Docker file, you must have to specify from. So which is your mandatory argument, right, or mandatory instruction. So I could say Dockerfile is a collection of instruction, right? So this is one, and you have to write those in capital form. So we will see, we are coming on that very shortly. So from is to define your base images, right? Run is to execute any command which you want to execute. Add is to you if when you have advanced use cases to download file from the remote URL or remote location, or using a URL, you could use add. Or if you want to extract raw files, use this one. We will be seeing this, and copy, just copy files or directory, and it's default command what you want to execute, right? We will see everything in very detail. Let's quickly see how the workflow of Dockerfile, Docker image, and containers, which is really confusing sometimes. So you can create a Docker image using your Docker file, okay, and then you can create containers using your Docker image. Nothing is special, right? But you can also create Docker images out of your Docker containers, which we already saw. And additionally, you can also create your Docker files, right, using your existing Docker image. And that's where the from instruction comes in, okay, where you specify from which Docker image you want to start building your own Docker image, right? So that's how the overall way you can create Docker image using Dockerfile. You can create container using Docker image itself. Then you can also create Docker image using containers. You can also create Dockerfile from the Docker images itself. So these are the way, or I would say this is the workflow. You can create any of this out of any of this. So now we are ready to write our own Docker files. Okay, so let's hop back to terminal and start writing our Docker file from the scratch. Okay, so we are at terminal. So in order to write a Docker file, you have to write like this, Docker file. Okay, so by the convention, you need to, or you have to use or write the Docker file as, okay, so it's a capital D and file F is small. So let's open, and as I said, we saw already, so very first instruction is from. Okay, so from, and I would say Ubuntu, right? And now this is only one instruction to create my own very first Docker image. In order to create your Docker image, okay, you have to use a command docker build, okay, or I would say in order to build your Docker image, you use docker build command, right? So this is docker build. Then you need to define a tag, okay, what you want to give a tag to this, okay. And so for me, dash d, I would say dsoc 3, and let's say 1, and here we say the dot, okay. So we are defining a context where, right? So here I have created a Docker file, and that's why it's like this. But before that, we create this Docker image. Let me show some Docker images. Okay, so we do not have this dsoc 3.1. So let's execute this again, and then we will check. All right. So if you see what just happened, okay, so because we already had Ubuntu image over here, that's why it did download, right? But we make it more complicated, okay, more complex, then we will be having more. But here, the important thing you could see, right? We were talking about the layering. So here you could see in here, this is layer 1 of 1, right? And why? Because from instructions, right? That's why it is created one of the layer, and it says from docker.io slash library ubuntu latest. Okay, so we define in our Docker file, right over here, I could say, or we could say here, okay, and use from ubuntu. Okay, that's why here it tries to find the email, and it found locally, and that's how it the docker, okay, found this instruction from, and that's how the docker image or the layer 1 was formed over here. And now we can check again docker images, and if you see the version 1, right here, right over here, or maybe for simplicity I could say Day6-4 one, and we can see the 101, right? And if I execute this command 1 2, so you could see the same, because we didn't make any of the changes in, right? We just say from ubuntu, and ubuntu has the same image, there is nothing in there. Okay, so this is one of the instruction, right, or directives. I mean, you may find across the this terms directive, instruction, parameters, argument, and also however you like to say, just go ahead and do that. So I use instruction, that is I'm used to it, so that's completely fine. Okay, from instruction or from directives or from means what. Okay, so that's okay. We have this image, this of 3. Now next, let me do one Day6 cd Day6. Okay, so let's do, okay, I will put the use docker file over here. Okay, so this is our docker file -1. Okay, all right, and we continue. I will share this docker files with you like that, demo number wise. Okay, so we have this one, demo 1. Now go ahead and use edit this docker file. So now we have seen from. Next we would like to add something in this, right? So not, so I could use dash, not dash, I mean O, so it opens as well as insert the vi editor. So now I want to install something, so we know to install any of the packages or execute any of the commands, so we have to use run instruction. Okay, and one more thing, if you don't use this as a uppercase, then it will throw you the error. Okay, if you want you can check it, but I know, so when you try it, just try not using as a uppercase, and you will see the error. So what I can do, sudo apt install. Okay, okay, so this is the way to install a package, right? So I'm good with this, I mean with this, with the command, right? Before we tried with the vim editor, but this time let's go ahead with the grid. And in order to build the image, I can do simply docker build, and again the tag, right, and Dockerfile. So sorry, not the Dockerfile, Day6-4. Let's say this is the version 2. Okay, and I can say like this, but instead of using this command, let's make it do one more thing. So, or I will come that later. So let's first build. So now what happened? So here it says Docker build and we got some error. It says error 2 of 2, run apt install git. Okay, it says warning apt and all this thing, unable to locate package git. Okay, and it says Dockerfile 2 and run apt install. So here it's saying here is the problem. Okay, here is the exited code 100 and it could not install the git, right? And we will see this later, but let's first fix this. So let me first copy this Docker file as a Dockerfile 2 and now with error. So here what's the thing, or why this happened, why it's failed to solve and create the error. So short answer is when you include apt-get update, like we on our terminal when we have to install, so first time we do apt-get update, right, in order to get refresh, right, the local repository, we have to perform apt update first. Okay, and that's why it throws us an error. So what I can simply say here, apt update and okay, so this is the way you can execute multiple commands. Okay, so and so ampersand, so from Ubuntu apt update and apt install, and we say -y, right? And simple this time. Here I will show another command. So in case when you have a different Docker files, right, like this, you have 1 2 3, it is not exactly Docker file. So let's say this your Docker file is for your production environment or staging environment, or this is for production or development or whatever environment, or Docker file name is different than what Docker suggested. So in that case you can simply say docker build -f and f Docker file. If your file name is different or the same, is this command still works. Okay, so it interprets, okay, all the Docker instruction which you are referring are in this Docker file. Okay, and then I need to provide a tag, so -d, and after that I say DSOC3, and this version, yeah, it's a third version, third demo, right? So I would say we will also share these Docker images with you as well. So if you want to try out, you could. So Docker build def f Dockerfile -d DSOC3, right? And then so it says Docker build x build required one argument, right? So what argument? We have to define this one dot, and that's why it was mentioning something. And you see it is building. So this is your again here, right, cached. It says 1/2 from this. So we already had this Docker images over here, right? That's why it says cached 1/2, and here you could see 2/2. So it has total number of 2 layers, and it says 2 here, and which was run apt update and apt install git y. So that's how here we in our Docker image, right, we have 2 layers, right? Yes, there is a command by which we can confirm. Okay, so we will be coming on that, but first let's see. And so now we know, okay, the image has created. So Docker images DSOC3-3, and now our image is there. So let's check what git version it is installed. So docker run -rm. I already talked about rm, so I don't want, because it's just test container, and I don't want container to be exist after exiting, right? So I can run command docker rm, and here, so docker rm, and use this one docker, and here I have to provide bin bash, yeah, c as a command, and I want to check git --version. So whatever command you want to execute, you just provide like this. Okay, and let's see. So we have git version 2.43. which is not updated one, of course. But that's a way how you can install, or you can simply run inside your Docker file. All right, you can execute the run instruction. So run is a instruction to execute any of the commands inside your container. Okay, so that's why we add this like this. Okay, so this is diagram number 3. Let me exit and clear the screen. So let me copy this Docker file as a Dockerfile-3. Now do something more. So let's talk about the layers, right? Before we go ahead and use more thing, right? So when we have from as so let me just copy this. Sorry, yunc and p and sudo apt update apt install, and here I would say install vim editor, for example. You could take anything, but I wanted to show you how layering works, right? So far we have 2. Now I could also say docker build is, let me use the same command, not this one, docker build, right? And -f is a Docker file, and instead of tag 3 I would use tag 4. And you could see now 3 of 3 is creating. So it's creating layer number 3, and you could see 1 of 3 from this one, right? And 2 of 3 from this one. It is also cached, right? Because this details is, or this strap is already available, right? We will see those in later, but yeah, how this caching works when I show you the layering. Okay, then we will talk about this in more detail, but just these are already on the system, so that's how it cached, right? Because we did it in our previous Docker image, right? When we created Docker version, instead of 4, 4 we created 3, right? So here, but the new thing was install of Vim. So there is another layer created, and that layer, and you could see here, why not, we will go and see as well, right? This image, it says writing image, and this is the value. We will explore this later. So we install Vim, we install Git as well, right, in our image, and now we have Docker image is available. I could say Docker image Day6-4, right? So here is our image, which is in bigger in size. If we see, so it was before 248 MB, right? And now it is 321 MB, right? And when we see the original Ubuntu image, so it was almost 101 MB, right? So because we updated, we install more packages into that. That's how the size get increased. Okay, so this is your diagram number 4, and let's copy this Docker file ls. So Dockerfile 3, and I would say Dockerfile 4. Yeah, so we are just creating files for, we gradually increase the level complexity of the Dockerfile, and at the end I promise you will realize it's very simple. Okay, nothing to be worried about at all. So now what we will do, so we have Dockerfile 4. So now let's increase its the complexity, right? So we already saw it created 3 layers, right? So next thing I would like to show you, it's another thing, which is copy, right? So let's say let's create one touch file 1. Okay, Docker file. Before that, let me show you one more thing, and then we go ahead and see the copy. So there is a one more directory, okay, or one more instruction you could specify in your Docker file. Okay, that is WORKDIR. Okay, so in this what actually it does. So in the Docker, the WORKDIR instruction is used to set the working directory for any subsequent commands. Okay, So after this, whatever command you're gonna execute, okay, for all those instructions, this work directory will be set, okay, in your Docker file, and it defines the directory inside the container where command will be executed. Okay, so be very careful when you are creating a work directory. So this is what it does, but let's see in the action what it does actually. So let's say I want to create one directory inside the container, right? So it won't create on your local system, it will be created in the container. So for that I have command the instruction, right, WORKDIR, and I'm just giving you not you specifying in Dockerfile, right? This is the way of creating, or I want to create a directory inside the container. So that's how I define using this work directory. Okay, so let me save this, clear the screen, and of course I can use the build command again, and in this time instead of 4 I will give it a 5. Let's create, and now you could see we have one more layer, right? 4 of 4. Before it was 3 of 3. Now as soon as we add one more instruction in the file, we have one more layer, right? And these layers are already cached because these are available on our system. Okay, so this Docker file is created. So let's check whether this is true or not. Okay, so for that I could say the run command. Okay, and instead of 3 I could use this image 3 of 5 bin bash c, and I know to check my directory, okay, where I am. I know there is a command pwd, and you know, because we define a work directory, right, that's why we have, or we could see the work directory over here inside the container, right? Similarly I can also execute ls-lrt, and simple could say like this, and of course because it's this one, right, so maybe I could type like this. You can also execute the more commands, and you could see the print or present working directory is dsoc3, and inside that we do not have any of the content. So that's how this work directory works, right? So let me copy this to cp our Docker file, and we make it 5, right? So this is one of the way to use the Docker and work directory. Okay, let's go ahead and see how we can use the copy instruction, right? So for that I know for copy I have a command add and copy both, but first we see the this one. We have file f1, and we will copy this file into this directory. But let's see if I don't specify anything, then what? So as per as I said, when we define this WORKDIR instruction, then follow, we set a path or location for following. So by default this f1 file should be located or copy in this one, right? So let's test this first, and I can use the command build, and this time of course I'm gonna create 6 docker image 6. Okay, it is created, and you could see now one more image, I mean not image, the layer we got 5 of 5, right? And if you see before it was here the 4 was 4, right? Now the layer, this number of layers, right, it's showing the number of layers. So we done, or we have added the file, and now let me execute the same command again, but instead of 5 I need to use image 6. So I could even use image 6 like this, and you could see, boom, this file has stored in this location, right? pwd let us know which location, and this file is also, when I said lslrt, it means by default it says here, but if you want, I could also type like this, D3. Okay, so it will give us a location, and yeah, I have to mention where it is. And you could see when I given the location, it says file F1 is copied over here, right? Very simple. So that's how you use the copy instruction. All right, so let's copy this as well. CP 5 into 6, and now see the other way. So this is one of the way to use copy, right? Let's see another way. So we already saw, instead of this, I could also say like this, right? D saw 3, and this file will go or will be moved to this location, right? This is the another way. There is no point to create an image out of it, or because I already explained you how it works, right? So ultimately it's the same, but if instead we go ahead and do something else, and let me mark it like this. So let me copy this so you can try it later when I share this. So instead of 6, it is gonna be 7, and this time we do something else with this copy command, right? So instead of this, let me use something as well. Copy, not p, dash and dash. So let's see what happened. All right, so let's save this, W and Q, and now let me build the image out of it. So docker build, okay, F is for file, and it's number 7. Go ahead and use this, and now we have 6 layers, right? One more layer is there. So you could see now it's creating, so all these layers are cached, 3 of 6, 4 of 6, and now it's copy, 5 of 6 and 6 of 6, copy, exporting image and exporting layers. And now we are over here, right? So this is there. Now I need to run, so run a Docker container, but this time I would like to run with 7, and let's see what happens. So we don't need, we know we are already over here, but still it's fine. So you could see when I did copy, I mean dot, it go ahead and copy all these files which are in current directory, right? So remember, when you run the command or when you use copy in this way, dot, be very much careful, okay? Especially here, in case we already set up a work directory, that's why everything inside that. But if you didn't set this, then copy will go in slash and you will be mess up with the file system, okay, or the folder structure. So instead, so always remember where you are, in which folder you are in, right? And after that use copy dot, right? So this is one of the way, this is another way, this is another way. So there are 3 ways you can use the copy command, right? Next instruction we will use, so let me just save this, and ls-alert, which is more convenient. So let's use cp. So instead of 7, it is gonna be 8 for you. So when you run, so just instead of Dockerfile, give a Dockerfile -add, and you're done with that. So Dockerfile, let's do it this time like this, but let's first add it. So this time we will do the add, right? So let me remove this one, this one, this one. So add, so let me first add file 1. I know there is no fun in this, but still, let's see what happens. And this time let me copy this one, Dockerfile SS 789 to show you how you could execute the command. Okay, so let me run docker run. But first we have to build the image. So docker build, and instead of this I would say, which was the last one, 9789, the 9. Okay, so it says already image is ready, docker 9. Okay, so let's run this. 7 8. Okay, anyways, so let's run this out of this, and we see, okay, not edge, which image, 9. Okay, so we have to create image 9. I mean, not create, we already created. We'll run this. So add, perform the same, right? So when I see docker images, okay, so it seems like we didn't create image. Like, 1 minute, we'll check. Docker, clear the screen. 3 9. Okay, 3 4 5 6 7 8. Okay, so consider this as a 8. Let me remove this docker. RMA T3 9. Okay, it's deleted. And Dockerfile. Okay, so now in 8 we did not create any image, it was just like this. And so we just copy and paste. And 9, yeah, okay, so let's stick with this one. So I create again, right? So docker, okay, it's the same, right? We can create a docker image out of it. So well, let's stick with the 9, no problem. We already saw that, we already copied that. And now let's do something else with this. So add, as I said, this performs the functionality, right, which copy doesn't. So in our home direct, I mean not home directory, I come back over here, we have this store files. Okay, so what I can do, I just copy this and put this in here. So let's say copy and here. Okay, but let's first see what happened when I use this with the copy command. And these are the to comment out, just use hash like you do in other in shell scripts, right? So copy and like this. Okay, and dot, we know what dot means, right? So let me just do it like this. And I say docker build. So instead of this one, I'm fine, and I give a name to a 10. Let's see. So it says internal load, and what it work directory this, it is copying over here. So now layer 5 of 5 exporting layers, and our docker images done. So now this time I would run docker run, and instead of this I will give a 10 and docker image. Yeah, so pwd, we know lsrt is also the same, so we don't need to perform this one because we already set our work directory. And you could see inside that, right, in this one we got the dsoc3 export tomcat.tar. Okay, so this is what happened with the your copy command. So let me first copy this as well in the 10. Okay, and now we change the docker file. So instead of this, now we are going to use add command, right? So let's see. build. This time we have 11. Okay, so now it's doing adding, right? And it's done. Okay, all right, so it is done, and we have the SOC 311. All right, let me first clear the screen. Okay, let's first see the Docker image. So Docker image is the SOC 311. Okay, so our Docker image is here, and let's run a container out of it to see what happened when we use this one, add instruction, right, for our job file. Docker run -rm esoc 3-11 and bin bash c and ls -lrt. All right, so now you see, before, when we use instruction copy instruction, so in that one, right, if I say Dockerfile 11, right, so when we use the copy instruction, then this tar file was automatically, automatically it means it performed the copy operation on this. So this file was as is copied in the Docker image, right? And when we use add, right, so in that case, what happened, this is going to be extracted as well. That's what we saw over here. Okay, so always be careful, okay, whenever you are using add command. So let me first open this, and if you see, so whenever you are using add instruction, so be very much careful where you are doing. Okay, because in this case, I know I wanted to show you, that's why I use a WORKDIR instruction before, and this file was extracted inside this folder, okay, or in this directory. So if you are not careful with this, okay, so, and if you extract any of the tar file, and if you download any of the tar file, right, in that case, if this is not a work directory, so maybe everything will be extracted over here and you will be messed up with the file system. So be much very careful. Okay, this is the one way to use the add instruction. There is one more way, okay, where add instruction is very helpful. Okay, so for example, let me add this, and comment this, and for that I have a URL. Okay, so here we go. So next one, to use add instruction, right, to download any of the file or URL. In that case, I'm using this one, right? This is our DSOC 3 web application, and where we have a POM file. Okay, so I'm going to use this one, and I'm using this one. I already set up the work directory. If I don't use it, still it will be. So my point here is to you, what I wanted to show you, whenever, okay, whenever you have to download or you need to use URL, okay, in that case, in that kind of use case, you need to use add instruction. Okay, and so let's go ahead and create an image out of it. Let me clear the screen. Docker build -t. This time we will go ahead and create the SOC 312, and yeah, let's build it. All right, so this image is here, it is created. Right now, we will run the container, right, using our created Docker image 12. And if you see here, we have a file 1, right, so which is we downloaded, and it has a lot of content. If you want me to get it out, let's do this f1.txt, and you could see this is the POM file which lots of content. Okay, so let me go back over here and show you. So this is the another way where you can create, sorry, not create, you can use add instruction in your Dockerfile. Okay, so next we will see the CMD instruction. But before I go ahead and show you that, so I would like to stop this tutorial over here, right? Today's session over here, because it's like today I show you a copy and add. So there are so many other instructions which are relevant when we see them along with the CMD. Okay, and I don't want to make it unnecessary long. So let's go ahead and summarize what we have learned today. Okay, so today, yeah, so we started, I mean, we have learned several things, but today main focus of what we have learned, we learn instruction, right? So we learn from instruction, which specifies which base image you want to use, right? There is a run instruction, right, to execute any of the command which one you want to execute. So yeah, so we will come on that one CMD part, okay, which is also essential. After that, we learn copy, right, files and directory, and we learn add, which has a more advanced feature, or I could say, yeah, advanced copy command, right? When we have tar file or URL, or we have to download from somewhere, right? This is really helpful. Otherwise, you need to use wget. We will come on each and everything step by step. Okay, so I had a plan, but then I realized CMD instruction better to show you with other instructions as well, and I don't want to make this too long, so that's the thing. And so I think that's it pretty much for the this session. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask or drop them in comments, or you can also write it over here, or if you would like, you can also contact us on our social media like other people do. We also respond on the social media as well. And on that note, thank you very much for your kind support and love. Thanks a lot for that. So that's it for today's session. We will be seeing more advanced topic of the Dockerfile. So see you next week. Until then, bye bye.